Well, happy Friday and good evening and welcome to Streaming Star Wars. Nick, how you doing,
Yes,
man?
sir. I'm doing fantastic. We have made it through another week,
We
and we
have?
get to be here doing
Yes.
what we do best, drinking things and running our mouths.
That's right. I was going to say, where's this going? But you nailed it. We're past it,
Yeah,
drinking things and
nothing if not on brand around here.
rambling about Star Wars as we do week to week. And this week, last week, we had a great guest. We had our friend Patrick Hotner join us. And this week, we're going to be joined by comic book editor and artist and just somebody who's got some opinions on Star Wars, Heather Antos. She's going to join us in just a little bit. It was an interesting episode of the Book of Din Djarin this week.
There have been a few opinions this week. I don't know if you've caught that, but
There's certainly
people are having big feelings since Wednesday. So
people have had some thoughts, but we'll get into that. Why don't we hit the news so we can go and we can get straight to the show tonight.
Awesome.
Well, surprise video game announcements, Indiana Jones action figures, and Crimson Reign continues. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the galaxy. Another week, another flood of news, rumors, clickbait, and conversation. This is Pete Fletzer, and welcome to Disturbances in the Force. Well, video game giant Electronic Arts dropped some official information this week about not just the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, but 2 other unnamed games from their Respawn group. The announcement said, quote, "The team are already working on the next game in the action-adventure Star Wars Jedi series and are joined by 2 new teams working to deliver additional unique Star Wars game experiences across multiple genres. Leading the development at Respawn's all-new Star Wars first-person shooter game is Peter Hirschman, game director at Respawn, who has a long and accomplished history with the Star Wars franchise. The third title is a Star Wars strategy game developed through a production collaboration with their newly formed studio Bit Reactor. There are still no release dates for any of these games, but we'll keep you posted here on Disturbances in the Force. Hasbro released a statement this week that it has extended its relationship with Lucasfilm. Hasbro will continue to be the global master toy licensee for all Star Wars products and has added Indiana Jones toys to the mix, which is a return for the franchise. They last offered an indie line in 2008 in connection with the Crystal Skull film and produced toys for Kenner for Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1983. And while they continue to pump out Star Wars toys and collectibles, the indie toys are expected around 2023. Motion picture sound editors have recognized 6 different Star Wars properties with nominations for their 69th Golden Reel Awards. Visions The Duel and Bad Batch Reunion and Galaxy of Sounds Excitement were nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing. Animation. Meanwhile, LEGO Star Wars Terrifying Tales was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing Non-Theatrical Animation. Tales from the Galaxy, Galaxy's Edge Last Call was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing for a game, and The Book of Boba Fett was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing for a limited series or anthology. The Golden Reels will be handed out on March 13th, 2022. Jennifer Beals, who plays fan favorite Garsa Fwip in The Book of Boba Fett, was interviewed in the latest issue of W Magazine, and among other topics, she spoke about her role in the show. They asked her what she might say to a non-Star Wars fan about the latest Disney Plus show, and she said, quote, "Well, is there such a thing as a non-Star Wars fan? I don't understand that. I'm with you in that I've only seen the films, so I hadn't taken a deep dive into the other worlds that were built, but it's just so extraordinary. It's mythic, and by mythic, it feels intrinsically true." She also said, "To me, that's incredibly compelling to see on such an epic scale." Expect to see Beals in the continuing story dropping each Wednesday on Book of Boba Fett. Well, StarWars.com gave comic fans a preview of the upcoming second issue of Crimson Reign, the continuing story that was started in the War of the Bounty Hunters collection in 2021. The preview said, quote, "Crimson Dawn's crime boss targets the Emperor himself, dispatching assassins chosen for their emotional connections to the ruler of the galaxy." They shared some images as well that include a shot or two of Kira, the head of Crimson Dawn, and Ochi of Bestoon, who is seen in live action as the assassin sent to murder Rey's family in The Rise of Skywalker. Issue number 2 of Crimson Reign drops on February 2nd. And finally, according to a tweet posted today by Discussing Films editor-in-chief Jacob Fisher, Bryce Dallas Howard will be back to direct at least one episode of The Mandalorian in Season 3 of the Disney Plus show. Howard has been dominating conversations this week as the director of the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which featured Din Djarin. Bryce Dallas has also directed episodes in 2 previous Mando seasons, including Season 1's Sanctuary and Season 2's The Heiress, featuring the live-action debut of Mandalorian Bo-Katan. There is no release date yet for Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Well, that wraps it up for this week's Disturbances in the Force. Make sure to check out the ATG Cast podcast stream for weekly one-on-one interviews with the people behind the fandom. This Thursday, Podcast of the Wills continues their canon study of Return of the Jedi with Matt and Sean from the Blue Bantha Milk Co. Please subscribe for regular updates. Follow us on all your social media channels at ATGcast and keep our website atgcast.com on your browser to keep up with us, find our merch, and get information about supporting the show as an ATGcast patron. Thank you so much for listening, and may the Force be with you. Well, there you go. There was your news.
You did it once again.
Once again.
And I have to say,
yeah,
it's kind of become our new favorite drinking game, where every week on like Thursday, one of us texts the other one and says, "There's really not that much news this week."
Yeah.
And then you show up on Friday night and you've got like 5 or 6 different stories. So
yeah,
kudos to you as always.
Well, thank you. That Bryce Dallas Howard one that was a game time decision. That one just really jumped in at the last second. I'm excited to see Bryce Dallas Howard continue to get the chance to play in the Book of Boba Fett.
I am too as well.
Or the Mandalorian. So I'm sure we'll get to that. Well, hey, why don't we bring in our guest?
Okay.
Before we do this is the first guest that's ever been actually brought to us by a sponsor. So let me play this little commercial. I hope she approves of it. Do you suffer from nightmares, flashbacks, hallucinations? Is it impacting your ability to do everyday activities like take over as crime boss? Do you feel uneasy and unable to trust people around you? Then talk to your doctor about Quercetin. Quercetin may not be for everyone. Common side effects include lost limbs, hairballs, and a sudden urge to urinate. Do not take Quercetin if you do not have health insurance, as unexpected injuries have been reported. Ask your doctor if Quercetin is right for you, because as long as the galaxy has crime lords, there'll always be a need for Quercetin. Well, welcome, Heather. How are you?
I'm great now. How are you guys?
We are great. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah.
For the people who may not know what your connection is to Quercetin, Black Quercetin, Santo, Santi, BK, why don't you give us a little quick connection there and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, for people who don't know who I am, I could be considered, I guess, Black Quercetin's fairy godmother in a way. I was a part of his debut in the Marvel Comics line back in 2015, and yeah, I've been working on Star Wars comics ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And now, what was your take? First of all, did you have any inkling that he was going to be showing up in episode 2 of Book of Boba Fett?
No, I had no idea. I mean, like, look, ever since we started working on the comics and like, you know, Afra and BT and Trip and all her gang, you know, and Quercetin were created, you know, there's been a lot of interest from games and, you know, other media and all these characters. And, you know, we've known it's only going to be a matter of time before a character actually physically showed up in one of the shows. You know, we've had crossover before with, you know, things dropping in the Kanan comic the same day a Rebels episode airs and so on and so forth and things like that. But this was the first time and I had no idea. And like, I got very emotional watching it. Like, I think I started tearing up and like I tweeted, because not to spoil anything, but I was like, I got emotional watching today's episode and people are like, yeah, me too. Like, oh, that flashback at the end, it was so emotional. And I'm like, yeah, we are having two very different experiences here.
And do you feel like they brought him to life the way you saw him, the way you sort of envisioned him?
Oh my gosh. So he shows up in that first episode and like it's really just one shot of him, right? It's just kind of like, oh, this dude's kind of scary. Maybe not, don't piss him off. But like, you know, all I could think of is like, oh my God, I hope we get to see him again. And all I want to see is like a Wookiee fight with him. That's it. That's all I want to see. And like, look, the amount of detail that they put into that puppet, like it is like perfect compared to the comics. Like it is dead on to his scar. And so when we in episode 3, right, Boba Fett wakes up out of his flashback to Tank. And you see Chrysanthemum and you see like everyone fight him and like all of this stuff, like, oh my God, it was perfection. Like I was just so happy. And
that's great.
Yeah, like he's for people who don't know his backstory, he was the Wookiee who volunteered for the gladiatorial fighting pits. He was the one who like he fought because he liked to rip people to shreds. It was a game and a good time for him. So I can't wait to see more of him being his badass self.
That's why I loved the way he went at that Trandoshan and just decided he was going to do it no matter what. I thought that.
Also, that Trandoshan who like ran up to him and like broke his glass in the cauldron. Like, I'm sorry, what?
What did he even think was happening there?
Yeah. That was beautiful to see. So, but we didn't get him or the twins or Boba Fett this week,
or Boba Fett for that matter,
on the book of Boba Fett. So let's have a conversation about the episode. In case you can't tell, we like our transitions here on during Star Wars. We're a big fan. So Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about the way the way the episode hit you this week?
Well, and again, we said it in the intro. We've heard it all week, and I say all week. It's only been 2 days ago. It's not that long ago, but it seems like every time we watch this show on a Wednesday, we get together on Friday to talk about it. And especially, like I think last week you said it was a new episode, but it was hard to remember. Was it episode 4 or did that happen in episode 1 and 2? Like it started to run together for a minute. Episode did not run into those first 4 episodes for some very obvious reasons.
Right.
I will say it says, and I have some thoughts about this and we can dig into it as we go along. My favorite episode of Book of Boba Fett so far has been the one that doesn't have Boba Fett in it. And it's not because I dislike what I've gotten before. I'm not that Star Wars fan. I grew up with the original trilogy, but I was never obsessed with Boba Fett. He was cool, but there were characters that I was way more into than Boba Fett. And so this kind of put into perspective for me. I'm really inspired by the story they were telling with Din Djarin in the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, the journey he was on, dealing with religious trauma, dealing with, this found family and parenthood. There's so much in it that I liked. I enjoyed the Boba Fett episode in Mando last season when he showed up and destroyed everybody before he ever got his armor back. Like I was into that, but I think I've kind of put together that for me, Boba Fett works best in cameo and he works best in some shorter doses. I like that he developed as a character. I don't want him to be the mindless killing machine that a lot of people are complaining. That's not my Boba Fett.
Right.
I like the development. I love the stories about the Tuskens, but I like this episode way more than I've liked the other 4 that we got before it.
Interesting. Heather, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that. And like, not to go all like, literally my job is critiquing story and how we tell it, but literally my job is critiquing story and how we tell it. And look, I'm with you. I mean, anyone who follows me on Twitter knows I'm not the biggest Boba Fett fan. I don't dislike him as a character, but like he's a cool costume and there's not a ton more to me. And what made him cool before was the mystery. And ever since they took his helmet off, that mystery is gone. And there's still such a huge element of mystery to Din Djarin and the Mandalore and everything around that keeps us like wanting to know more. And that's been my biggest issue and critique with just this series as a whole is like, we are, 5 or so episodes, 6 episodes in, however far in we are. And I still really couldn't tell you what the actual like thesis of the show is.
Yeah. Right.
I believe there's a very interesting story in there. What that story is, I don't know if I could tell you yet. And so, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening that I do enjoy that keeps me coming back every week. But yeah, like there's, you know, Mandalorian season 1, episode 1, you have this guy who's a bounty hunter and he's out to capture this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is out to capture this thing. And, you know, and we see him at the beginning literally cut a dude in half. Like this guy is ruthless. He doesn't care. You know, there's very little compassion in there. He has a job to do and he is good at it and is going to do it. And then you see this creature and he doesn't know what a baby Yoda is. He just sees this creature and makes a choice. He goes against what he is told. And now everyone in the galaxy is after him.
Right.
I don't need to know anything else. That's a story. And that's what Book of Boba Fett is missing.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about last week, and it might be one of the reasons why I felt the way I did, which I'll share in 1 second. But one of the things we talked about last week is there's not, we talked about who's the big bad in Book of Boba Fett. And, you know, one of the thoughts that Patrick had last week was that, you know, maybe we don't need one. And while I think that's an interesting concept, I think you do. I think, you know, a sci-fi action fantasy without a compelling enemy is it's a different type of story. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the Book of Boba Fett is because it's a character study. We don't normally get that deep character study. And so I'll share my reaction to the episode. Because I think we'll have like 3 sort of different perspectives. I was actually, as much as I love Mandalorian, which I do. I mean, I cannot, like, I want season 3 to start next week. I'm ready for it now after what we just saw. But I was honestly disappointed that we didn't get any Book of Boba Fett this week. In that when the episode ended, when I looked at about the halfway point. It's funny, we were talking about Thank the Maker before we got on here, and I think it might have been Ryan who said the same exact thing. I checked the time, and we were halfway through, and we'd already gotten so much episode. I expected, okay, now we're going to get Book of Boba Fett, and of course we didn't until Fennec shows up for literally 30 seconds at the end. So I was actually a little bit disappointed, and I think we saw a comment from Framey, who was joining us in the chat tonight, who said it kind of makes you want to see him more next week. For me, I'm ready to get back to Book of Boba Fett. And I'm also now more stoked than I ever thought I was going to be. And I already knew I wanted season 3 of Mando, and I didn't know what to expect from it. But now that I kind of know what to expect from season 3 of Mando, I need it. I need it now. I want it before Obi-Wan. I want it before Andor. But my reaction was, oh, damn, I missed Boba Fett this week. And that was weird for me because I agree with what you're saying, Heather. To me, I didn't really, I don't really need that story, or I didn't think I needed that story. I'm with Nick. The people who sort of this cult of Boba Fett was always like, that's great. And he was fun to play with in the sandbox, but he's kind of this cool sort of Star Wars presence. But I'm, I think neither one of you said that you're not enjoying this story. It's just it's a super compelling story, and it's just about a different person, a different place in someone's life, and it's kind of an interesting story to tell. But to your point, I still don't know where we're going with it. And I think it relies too heavily on on you knowing who Boba Fett is, right? It's relying so heavily on, oh, these guys know who he is and they're going to watch it no matter what, and that was like something I realized after watching the very first episode. They don't give you any context on who Boba Fett is, on who Jabba is, on what Tatooine is. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, they assume I just watched Return of the Jedi.
Well, and I think there's something interesting there because we've talked a lot, and I've, you've heard it on a million different podcasts and shows, kind of the consumer level Star Wars fans that aren't as into it as deep as we are, that don't read books and comics and watch the animated stuff. And I wonder if on one level that may even be a part of the deal, is my dad, who's, in his late 60s and watched Return of the Jedi and saw the other movies probably once somewhere along the way, but is not steeply ingrained in needing to know, well, this is all these other things that happened. It's an accessibility thing. And the 2 examples that I thought of was, one, my dad called me yesterday. hey, do you have a minute to talk? I was like, yeah. He said, I really like that episode of, Book of Boba Fett with with Din Djarin and Mandalorian and all that. He hasn't called me for any of the other episodes this season so far. This is the first time that he called because it was different. And it's the same way that last season when Ahsoka showed up. He called me and he was like, I really like that Jedi with the 2 lightsabers. She's cool. And I was like, you have no idea how cool she is. And so there is, and this is what we say all the time too. The majority of the people that consume Star Wars are not at the level that we are, not because they're just like, oh yeah, that was fun. And they watch it and they move on with their life. I'm the one that hosts shows about it and thinks about it every day and all that kind of stuff. The other thing I wanted to say, Pete, was I know you have said several times along the way, I think there's a juxtaposition here.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about when Mandalorian season 1 was announced.
Yep.
How you had that moment of going, do we really need this? What is this going to be? You were kind of iffy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it showed up and you got it and we get that very first episode and the Baby Yoda reveal at the end and you were whole hog, you were on board, you were fully for it.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we get a teaser for Book of Boba Fett. And I think we were more on board because of how much we loved Mandalorian. But now I find myself over halfway through Book of Boba Fett going, I didn't really need this. Like, I would have been fine without it.
That's where I was at the end of Mandalorian. So like, it hasn't changed. The only I mean, look, the only reason I was like, oh, I'll watch Book of Boba Fett was for more Fennec Shan because I really liked her in Mandalorian, and now I'm pissed off at how like underutilized Ming-Na Wen is in their show. Like, you have Ming-Na Wen and she says maybe like one line per episode, and that's just, I'm just kind of bummed out by that. But hopefully we get more of her later on. But
absolutely,
that's kind of, I don't know, like, I'm just at this, like, I mean, of course they're gonna do a Boba Fett show because money, like, that's why they're doing all of this at the end of the day.
Right.
And like, I can't compete with that, but like, it just, you're gonna do a Boba Fett show and it's gonna be kind of this meh is my, is just an issue for me. Although I do have my Boba Fett pitch, and this is what I want and wish it would have been, is, we all love Boba Fett because he was this like bounty hunter, lone man, Lone Ranger-esque style of kind of person. And so, like, I just wish the show opened. He's chilling in the cantina, having a drink, whatever. And you just see a dude with a blaster show up and shoot him in the head, take his helmet, put his armor on, and he is Boba Fett. And now we're going to follow the story of a dude that we, is a mystery now. Like,
right.
And like, I just think there would be something cool if Boba Fett, it's like Batman, right? It's the mask, not the man.
Yeah.
I think that could be cool, and I would watch the shit out of that show.
Well, I'll be honest. I had said early on before, I guess we did a predictions episode before this all started, and I really liked, and we did kind of get it. I loved the idea of a non-linear story, that it didn't have to connect week to week, and because it was called Book of Boba Fett, the chapters could be, one chapter was escaping from the Sarlacc, another chapter was this other thing that happened over the course of his life.
Almost
and I
like
really
vignettes, like,
yes, exactly. Individual sections of it that was a part of his overall story. But I will say what I haven't gotten that I really wanted is I did want some Cobb Vanth. I need more Cobb Vanth in my life. I would have loved that story. And I thought about it when you said somebody else wearing his armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
The Cobb Vanth piece, I thought that was a great way to reintroduce Boba Fett, because I think even myself, I was like, is that, and I knew the Cobb Vanth story because my favorite Star Wars novel is Aftermath. So I knew, and I know I'm in a very small minority when I say that. I'm fine with that. But I was like, wow, how are we going to get this story? So I thought that was pretty cool. But I also think that, I think that I keep putting a lot of sort of faith and hope in some of, Robert Rodriguez made some very bold statements. He said things like, this is, no filler. Every episode over delivers, I think is what he said. Dangerous to say to the Star Wars fan community.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about that. You're also talking about, I think there's a tweet that was out there by Kyle Katarn, who's just a really interesting dude. And he said, so many dude bros are pissed off that Boba Fett isn't doing what the Boba Fett on their shoulder tattoo is doing. Yeah. And I thought that was great. And, but that's where there's this weird disconnect. And
So has Boba Fett become Space Punisher on some level? Because there's another version of
that's what a lot of people want. Here's the thing, and I was thinking about this while y'all were saying this, is like, look, the show is essentially like, his rebirth, and he wants to change his ways and not be feared anymore, blah 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 blah. And so it is a character study. That's 100% true, but it's a character study of a changed man, and we never got to know what he's changed from. And I think that's the biggest issue, is if there was more canon Boba Fett of who he was before, then like I think the show would hit better.
Yeah.
And like maybe this is their attempt of like, oh, he's a changed man from this impossible expectations of the imaginary Boba Fett we all have in our brain.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think what would add to that, I mean, maybe there was something simple. And again, you're a story editor, storyteller. They could have really addressed a lot of the fan concerns if they simply, because one of the things I posted was I took a screen grab of when the armor this week says, unfortunately, that only exists in legend, right? And that was so meta, such a perfect phrase. But if they had at least referenced that, and I know they're throwing in, they threw in the I've ridden a creature 10 times the size of this. Okay, that's the mythosaur from the or the dinosaur, because I don't think that's really a mythosaur from the Christmas special, the holiday special. So they're throwing in a couple little things, but if they had addressed a little bit of the legend of Boba Fett, even in casual conversation, and reference these things that are in Legends comics and Legends books, because that's what people are holding on to. And I just saw the quote. What was it from? I don't remember who the quote was. Just put it up there, but it said something to the effect of, Boba Fett suffers from the fact that there is 40 years of fan. There it is. The biggest challenge for the show is that I had 40 years of fan imagination combined with EU. And that's true. And again, if they just would throw a bone to that, I think a lot more people would be like, okay, I get it. I don't I don't need to see this story of getting close to retirement age Boba Fett, but at least that it still exists. And that was something I said a couple of weeks ago, and I'm trying to make, I think it's so important. Those stories do still exist. They absolutely exist. And for a character like Boba Fett, his legend is more important than who he really is.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you said, start the episode by, it's the mask, right? Start the series with the mask. That's who he is. Yep.
I think it's also important to remember, and it's the big thing like I've been having running through my head as I watch every single one of these episodes, is like, this is a kid show. It's for kids at the end of the day. Like there's only so much of that they will show, and for a lot of these people who are upset that we aren't getting Space Punisher, we've never seen anything remotely close to that in any live action Star Wars. Like the closest we've ever gotten was probably Revenge of the Sith, when it's implied that Anakin kills all the younglings. But even that, you don't see.
You don't see it.
It's all off the screen. And if everyone remembers too, like that movie getting a PG-13 rating, like that was a big
that was a very big deal.
That was huge. So, that's also just very, very important, is, these are for kids. At the end of the day, it's Disney Plus. That's who it's meant for. And, if kids are loving the show, then great, it's a success. The show isn't being made for 40-year-old men. It's being made for 40-year-old men to watch and share with their kids.
Yeah. And I think to tag right along with that, it is also marketed for mass appeal. It's not targeted at deep cover Star Wars nerds like me and you and Pete and whoever. It's targeted to the people that go, ooh, Star Wars, I'll watch that. I said 100 times, my mother watches Mandalorian with my dad because she thinks Grogu is cute. But my mother has never cared about a Star War in her life until that happened. That's what marketing is. Dollars are like, there's money to be made. There's something that is going to appeal to the masses. And if people like us that overanalyze it find stuff to like in it, even better. If not, we're just going to have podcasts and complain about it. But we don't do that here because this is fun, like you said. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about that point, Nick, that you were just talking about. And let's talk a little bit about the fan reaction to the comment that a Mandalorian episode is the best episode of Book of Boba Fett. because Twitter likes to be mad, right? So,
Always makes me laugh.
and I'm glad that we have you this week. I was, when we had you booked, Heather, I was excited. I was like, we're going to get a BK episode, and we're going to talk about everything.
Oh, I thought about that. I was thinking about that when I watched the episode. I was like, man, they wanted me to talk about Lecherson.
Yeah,
No,
I'm gonna.
we'll take you either way, but
I was gonna
no
roll Nick
BK.
under the bus and say, Nick said, call Heather, tell her we don't need her this week. And
Tell
he's
her-
like,
tell her
no,
it's
we're
off.
still
We're
gonna
gonna-
have
we're
her
out.
because I think she's adding value. But no, I think where there's a really interesting thing I'd love to get your perspective on is, okay, so people who are saying that this was, the best episode and it had nothing to do with Book of Boba Fett, or people who aren't understanding the connection to Book of Boba Fett, or people who are saying, this feels out of place, etc. What's your perspective as somebody who brings us amazing comic book stories? This is a one shot essentially, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a very clean one shot too. Like, you don't have to have any context of who Mandalorian is. Like, you don't have to really have seen his show for you to like appreciate it and enjoy it. It starts with him walking into this place for a bounty. He wants this guy. We've all seen this scene before, right? Like,
Yep.
this is not anything no one has ever seen before. So we know what's going to go down, but there's the added appreciation for fans who did watch the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. We know what the dark saber is. We know who the armor is, and her showing up like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. And we know what happens to their sect, right, and the previous seasons as well, and so we can appreciate that. But they also do a good job of reintroducing you to those concepts and things, and give you what you need to know in order to appreciate and understand this episode, which that is, in my opinion, what a good story is, what a good comic is. Like, anyone should be able to jump in. At any episode should be able to be someone's first episode. Any comic book should be able to be someone's first comic book. I should be able to pick up issue 1003 and still like be able to follow along with the story. I might not pick up every little minute detail that goes in there, or appreciate it, the poster on the wall that's a callback to, episode 3 or whatever. But like, it's the context of who, what, where, when, and why. Who is this person? What are they doing here? Why does it matter? And how are they going to accomplish that? Like, all of that needs to be clearly established right away. Who is the Mandalorian? Well, he's clearly a bounty hunter. What is he doing there? Well, he's there to capture his bounty. Why? Because money's nice.
Right.
How's he gonna do it? Well, he's got this really dangerous blade. That's it. That's all we need. And we're in. And I think that's just so important to any story.
But I'm glad to hear you say that, and I hadn't thought of it the way you just said it, and it's really, really important, because I think that's an issue that I think there's 2 things going on with both Mando and Book of Boba Fett, and that is they come out week to week. They're not bingeable until the series is done. And I think people have gotten into this mindset of how you watch a show. And I expect, the expectation of the binger is you're watching Ozark, and as soon as you're done with episode 3, you go to episode 4. And so it feels like one 10-hour block of story. Whereas this is one step forward, half step back, and then we continue the story. And then we take a little bit of a step back, and then we continue the story. And that is, I think that's where people who are saying things like, there was an article that came out today on one of the websites saying that Book of Boba Fett doesn't know where it wants to go, and it's choppy and it's disjointed. And while I think it's a really poor take, I understand where people may go from that, because it depends on what they're bringing to it, right? The old force tree on Dagobah, right? It's only what you bring with you that you take out. What's your thoughts on Mando and even Book of Boba Fett as it relates to a comic book style storytelling?
Sure. Yeah, so there is this saying in comics where you are writing for the issue or writing for the trade. And Book of Boba Fett is what I would call writing for the trade. You know, you're writing for someone to just watch this all in one go, read this all in one go. And I bet you Book of Boba Fett is going to make so much more sense and be a much better show when we can sit down and just binge it in a day and see everything next to next. Because again, that first episode felt like half an episode, right? Like, like it ended and I was just like, okay, but where's the rest of it? You know, and that's how I feel about this. You know, I feel like Mandalorian did a really good job of having, and you have a one and done adventure in every single episode, you know, but still the overarching story still progressed.
Yeah.
And that is a weakness of Book of Boba Fett. They have it sort of, but it's not as strong because it's not clear what the overarching story is yet. You know, and so that's a struggle. That's, you know, that's really a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, Ming-Na Wen has said that you're going to see the show completely different at the end. And again, between that and Robert Rodriguez talking, I'm like, don't build up these expectations. I'm so worried.
That's the like, oh, you're gonna see it completely different at the end. I'm like, oh, is this an I See Dead People thing where like, oh, we get this reveal and this twist, and now it makes the show better if I watch it all over again.
Right.
But like, to me, that's lazy storytelling. Like, your whole story shouldn't rely on a reveal or a twist or an aha moment.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no guarantee that people will hang on for that. And the only reason that people are hanging on for that is because it's Boba Fett.
Right.
So they can get away with it. Congratulations to them. But like, it's just, it's not bad storytelling, but oh my God, it could be so much better.
I love that thought, because if they waited till the end of season 1 of Mando to reveal Grogu, would people have made it through? And probably not, right? I mean, the acting in these shows, let's face it, it's not going to win awards for acting. The stories are over the top, the telling of the stories and that's what Star Wars is, and it's awesome. But if you don't know the character, but that using that reveal early and that hook, you were there. That is an interesting thought. If the hook of Book of Boba Fett doesn't show up until episode 7, that is then, yeah, they've put the cards on the table and said, you came for Boba Fett, we gave you Boba Fett, thank you for sticking around. Right.
Well, we gave you Boba Fett, but it's not the Boba Fett you wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
Or expected. Yeah.
And like, I'm sorry, but like a story that is happening present day, like the flashback shouldn't be the most interesting part of the story, you know?
Yeah. And they have been, at least in my opinion. You know?
I agree too. And I think like that makes me frustrated, because I'm just like, why didn't they just tell the story chronologically? Like that's what I don't get, unless some of the whatever this big twist reveal aha moment is something that happens in the flashback. I don't know. It's just, like I said earlier, I think there's possibly like a really great, cool story they're telling in here, but oh my God, are they going about it the most convoluted ass backwards way?
Yeah. Well, and something else that stood out to me is thinking about, you know, I've kind of talked about, you know, for me, Boba Fett is best in cameo. Boba Fett is best in, you know, those OT moments that I got to carry since I was a little kid 40 years ago, or the cameo moment in season 2 of Mando. Like those moments, you know, propelled me, like, because I was never excited about Boba Fett, but after the episode, The Tragedy, and then when we get the sting and the teaser at the end, I was like, holy crap, I'm excited for this series. And I've said many times jokingly, I never knew I would be excited about a Boba Fett series. But there's another thing, and this is a very dumb kind of nitpicky thing, but bear with me for a second. If you listen to a podcast or you listen to a radio show and there's somebody on it and you've been listening to them for years, but you've never seen what they look like, you just know their voice. So you build this image in your mind of what they look like. And then one day you see what they actually look like and you're like, Boba Fett, because of when I got Boba Fett as a kid, was Jeremy Bulloch, and it was before Tamura Morrison and before special editions where they went in and changed voices and all these things. There's something about the Tamura Morrison version of Boba Fett that I'm just like, and you said it too, Pete. The acting, Like there's a lot of scene chewing there. It's a little extra for like it has moments to take me out of it, I guess is what I'm saying. Whereas
yeah.
it just feeds that cameo theory that I keep kind of harping on that I don't mean to make such a big deal out of, but like
We get it.
like
you don't like Boba Fett. No.
That's it. All this stuff behind me clearly says I don't like Boba Fett.
We'll cancel the weekly show. Fine.
Sorry, I'm out. Yeah. I just toss it in. But also, I agree with what you said, Heather. And like the flashbacks have been my favorite part of all the episodes besides episode 5. I do truly love the character development with him and the Tuscans. Like that's powerful. The trauma, the emotional trauma that he dealt with his dad, those moments watching the ship fly away when he's still on Camino, like there's power in that story, and having that ability for, again, something else that we've always just been told, Obi-Wan telling Luke in Star Wars about the Tuscans, and then Anakin killing them all. And well, they're just mindless killers. And like, there's a story there. And I love that the Tuscan chief himself says, not all tribes are the same. Like there's so much. And of course, the commentary about it being indigenous people and the things that we can relate to, that's very powerful. And I'm 100% here for that. But you said it best. For a story that's supposed to be told in the present, the best parts of it have been the parts in flashback.
Yeah.
It's interesting. If it was Clone Wars animated, I think we would have gotten a 4-episode arc, 20 minutes each of the flashbacks. And then we would have gotten a 4-episode arc of current day Boba Fett, maybe a little Mando, little arc there, and then we would have closed it down. And so it's interesting because I don't know where this goes at this point. I think this is the big challenge, and maybe we're ready to talk a little bit about where we think it goes. I mean, it's interesting because
before we get there, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
Please.
We do have Heather, and Heather is an unapologetic lover of droids.
Yes, we didn't even talk about the episode, really.
and just to throw this out there, when Heather was on Podcast of the Wills, the top 7 list we counted down was her top 7 favorite droids.
Right.
And this episode and last week were very droid. I mean, it was a droid buffet of like lots of fun. So a couple of things, and I'll just throw these up here on the screen. Heather, jump in with whatever you want. We have Peli and her squad. We've got a Treadwell. We've got pit droids. We've got R4. If that wasn't enough, and this is where I really want Heather to chime in, we've got this good boy right here.
Oh my God. I'm like getting giddy right now.
Because if we're talking about fan reaction, this is really what we're talking about.
I squealed so much. I love BD1 so much. I have a throw blanket that someone gifted me. That's all BD1s. I want my own BD1 so much. And to see like a live action one, like I hope he was actually built. Like I hope, that it wasn't just a CG thing. Because I want him.
And it was great the way they used BD1 like he was used in the video game. It's a subtle sort of thing, but he was literally like, for those of you,
he's like a puppy, like he's
right. And for those of you that played Jedi Fallen Order, he did the hologram of it. Right. Yes. He hologrammed what needed to be done, and then you did it. And it was so great. And he was just, and when he was grabbed by the Scurrier or the Womp Rat or whatever, I was like, no, you can't just show him and then get rid of him.
I know.
And after he got grabbed, he had the little limp like BD1 has in Fallen Order. And that brings up something too, talking about, the ways they use that particular droid. Throughout this series, I really have appreciated the way they've used humor in this series in every single episode. And sometimes it comes in kind of the ways that Boba is not really great at being a crime boss. And like, he has to look at Fennec and go, wait, aren't they supposed to pay me? Like some of those moments are really funny. The TSA moment when Den has to unload all his stuff into the crate made me laugh out loud. Of course, I was nervous. Yeah. When he came off the ship, of course, we thought, the Darksaber is going to be gone. Like, there's a reason they're doing this. And like Pete said before he came on the air, he's like, there really wasn't a reason to have to do that other than it was funny that he had to take, every single piece. The one that hit me and maybe even flashed me back to some childhood trauma was when BD1 was being the flashlight and Din kept telling him where to shine it and he couldn't quite get it right. Like we all had a moment with our dad where he's like, no, shine it right here. What are you doing? But yeah, but the droids, I had to bring that up for Heather's benefit because as a huge droid lover, that was a big part of this episode that I thought was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, it was so good, and like it's so funny because I literally I'm going to Galaxy's Edge for the first time in March, and I just booked my droid build, and
excellent.
That's all I care about. So
well, everybody on Twitter will anxiously be awaiting to see what it is you build.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be so indecisive, but my boyfriend's also getting one too, so I'll make him use his and sacrifice to build.
There you go. That's right.
That's like when you go to dinner with your significant other, you're like, I kind of want the chicken, but I also kind of want the fish. You want to?
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, you get the fish, I'll get the chicken,
get that
and
one.
Somebody's not happy. But it's interesting too because we talked a little bit about this, and since we're digging a little bit into the episode, because I think that whole section, I mean, there was about 10 minutes of screen time building the N1 starfighter. Mm-hmm. So it was funny. My son actually said, my 9-year-old son, a very observant, said, where's he going to put his bounties in that thing? And that's a great question. And it's I think Scotty said it, Nick, when you and I were texting with him. Maybe he's moving beyond that. Maybe this is sort of that step toward it, or maybe it'll just be because Star Wars and he'll find a way to get them in there. But they spent a lot of time on that ship, so it's not a short-term ship. They put the most obvious, here's where Grogu's going to go, bubble behind the,
I mean, if you're going to telegraph it.
Right. That was
it. Grogu the astromech? Like what?
It's either that or Din is going to go strictly to beheadings, and they're just going to fit in that little part back there.
I mean, he said he didn't need to bring it back warm, so
that's right. I mean, he's kind of decided.
Did they use the same exact audio cut of Pedro Pascal with that? I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. I need to compare those.
I would love to know. Yeah,
so
that
close.
Would be funny.
It was so fun. But
put that in the gallery episode.
So it brings up the question, before we go into predictions, are we going to, well, this leads directly into predictions. Is he going to go see Grogu now? Are we going to see that? How are they going to bring them back? Is Din going to come back to this? I have my theory, Nick, I shared it with you, but I want to hear you guys. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to see this visit to Grogu in Book of Boba Fett time?
I think that I don't care. I just want whatever the armor made to be a tiny little Mandalorian helmet for Grogu.
Ooh,
that's all I want.
I
like know
that.
That's not what it is, but like that's in my head canon. So
that's right.
I love that. Yeah, that they tied it up that way.
Yeah. The fact that they tied it up to look like Grogu's cute little head. I mean, we can. And there's a Japanese folding art, something that has a name that I don't know now that was supposed to reflect. But I do think they telegraphed a pretty specific chainmail kind of moment with all those little rings spilling out. The big debate that I've seen, at least, again, I feel like we watched this episode last week. It was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
It's either, and maybe this is the question for the both of you, is it a head shroud kind of thing or is it a shirt? Because I'm in shirt camp. I think it's a shirt.
I'm in shirt camp.
Yeah, I'm in shirt camp too.
I'm in shirt camp.
Okay, good. Well, at least we agree on that.
Yeah.
So, Nick, do you think we're going to see that visit with Grogu?
Not this season. I agree with you. I think we get left with him heading that way. And I think what you said maybe to us in the group text, and to steal your moment, he's going to head out and we're going to get my man Carson Teva, those guys patrolling again. And he's either going to get turned back by the New Republic that's patrolling, or he's going to get turned back by the Pikes. I think this coming conflict is going to turn him back and he wants to go. I saw somebody post today, and this was a little bit dark. Either the Pikes take or kill Pelimoto. And so he comes back because of that. Like, we don't need that. We need Space Amy Sedaris. We need that to stay.
No, I would get
but mad. No, I think this was the one Mandalorian specific part of this series I think Grogu, the gift, all that stuff will pick up in Mando season 3. I think he heads that way and gets turned back to help Boba and Fennec and honor that thing that he said he would do.
Yeah, that's my sense. I think Fennec says something like, okay, but be quick. And as soon as he pulls out of the atmosphere, there's 1,000 pike ships ready to invade, and he can't get out. And so he's sort of
and it would mirror really in a neat way when he dropped Grogu off to what's his name? Originally in the first season, he drops him off and he sits in the ship. He looks at the knob and realizes, crap, I can't leave. I have to go back. I have feelings.
Yep.
It could mirror something like that. He shows up, he's on his way out to go find the kid and realizes these guys are my friends too. I need to come back and help them because it's more pressing.
That might be kind of that would be a good way to do it too, because he did refuse payment for it. And Interesting.
I like that you said Mando had feelings for Grogu, as if like he had fallen in love with him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's I think the paternal thing for sure.
Yeah, I think it's that, but yeah. He's just out here catching feelings.
That's right. Out here catching those baby Yoda feelings. It happens.
It's true. It's those eyes, man. What can you do?
Every time.
It really is. It is. So let's talk about where we think the show's going to go. All right, we got 2 episodes left of Book of Boba Fett. We all seem to agree that was a one-shot Mando. We're not going to be sort of sneaking our way into season 3 of Mandalorian. I said the other day that a lot of people are like, there's only 2 episodes left. What can you do with it? Well, the way I look at it, and then I'll throw it to you, Heather, is even if they're 2 45-minute episodes, that's 90 minutes. That's a movie length. Mm-hmm. You can tell a good story there, especially with 2 hours left. So I'm not worried about having enough time to do it. I wish that, and I think that's, again, that binge mindset, right? You expect it to build differently. I don't want it to end like season 8 of Game of Thrones, where it was like, oh, by the way, now she's bad and she's burning the whole city and she's lost her mind. But Heather, where do you think these last 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett are going to take us?
I mean, where? Tatooine? That's where the whole show's been.
Right.
Disney Plus. I don't like these questions. Come on, guys. No. Look, there's the hopeful me that like, oh, we're suddenly going to get a well-paced, context. All the story is there. I don't know if that's going to be true. I worry episode 7 is going to be very, very slow, talk heavy, and then like an appearance will show, like whatever the aha will be at the end of episode 7. Yep. And then 8 will be the war, right? Whatever this war is that they've been talking about for 6 episodes now. Yeah, like, and then 8 is going to be like all out action, resolution, whatever. But I think most of 7 is going to be pretty slow, talk heavy stuff.
It's a Filoni episode
at the end.
Yeah, it's a Filoni episode. So he's the co-writer and director on it. So
yeah. So someone's going to show up in it. That's right. Filoni. Someone's
that's
going to
the
show
hallmark
up in
of Filoni.
Right.
Who that is, it could be anyone. There's pick your fan theory. It literally could be anyone. They haven't really done a good job of teasing anyone in particular, I don't think. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm also someone who like I try to go into things without any expectations, especially with Star Wars, because that's how people get pissed off and let down. And hey, let's face it, even bad Star Wars is still Star Wars. It's kind of like pizza.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
kind of like pizza. So
that's right. What are we really complaining about here?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. We'll see what's gonna happen, and we'll see how it will all go down. Literally in 8.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Nick, what are your
thoughts?
Just
don't kill Black Sand.
No, they can't. No.
Yeah, and I don't know. This is completely off track from that, but I feel like, and we said it maybe the first week he showed up. I love the idea that he was introduced so that we could get to see him again in the Obi-Wan series. I would love that. I know there's of course a comic book arc and a whatever,
That's
but
all I
like
want.
I
That's
would even if it's
all
not, I don't need a direct recreation of those moments,
I
but to know
do.
there's a history. Okay. Well,
I
you're the
do.
expert, so I'm going to yield to you.
Obi-Wan gave Blacker Sand that scar, and he has
Correct.
that scar, so I want that moment.
That's
Damn
fine.
it.
I now officially want that as well because Heather said so. So that's all that I need. Yeah,
And
as
I
far as
will be
going forward,
disappointed. That is my expectation.
well, when that happens, just come back here and talk to us
I
about
will.
it,
I
and
will.
we'll
You have my
counsel
number
you through the
now.
whole thing. That's right. We'll counsel you through the whole thing. As far as next week and the next 2 episodes, we've got 2 left. As a longtime lover of TV shows, and whether it's The Sopranos, whether it's Game of Thrones, any of those things, there is a little bit of history with the whole penultimate episode thing. It's not always the last one, it's the second to last.
Yeah.
So I love that there's the, and it's the excitement. I think it even ties to what Heather said. Same thing with expectations. I'm not coming in with like, ooh, they better give me this or I'm going to be pissed, or ooh, they better give me, whatever. Said to somebody the other week, I don't know the first thing about Moon Knight, and I'm going to remain that way because I'm excited to just watch that series and just consume it as somebody who knows nothing about Moon Knight.
Right.
So next week, like, it would be exciting for it to be, I think the last 2 are the war. We're right back to Boba. We're right back to getting his, crew together. Would I be surprised and excited to see Bo or Cobb Vanth or, Space Bill Burr, for God's sakes? Like, yeah, let's go. Let's rally them all up.
Yeah.
But I'm just here to enjoy it. I'm here to see what we're going to get. And I'm excited more than anything, maybe, especially in light of this week's dialogue and what everybody's been talking about, get the last 2 episodes and then look at the whole thing as one big piece of storytelling and say, what from there? What do we want?
Right. Yeah. I my thoughts are next week with,
Yep.
She wants a treat. She wants a
Okay,
treat.
that's right.
what
The
she
dog
wants.
tour wants a treat. That's what's
Yes.
most important. Sorry, go ahead,
sitting
Pete.
there
That was
waiting.
too
No,
good not to put up.
No, hey, the Blue Bantha Milk guys, they rule. So,
Hi.
so my feeling is next week is the gathering of the army, the last of the pieces of the puzzle. I think it's going to be, I think next week is fan service out the wazoo, especially because I think it's Filoni. Since it is Filoni, I think, look, there's been too many rumblings of Cad Bane to not have him show up somehow. I think we're going to get Bosk. I think we're going to get, I do think we're going to get Space Bill Burr. And here's the thing that would be very strange, but this might be that thing that people are talking about, which would be shocking. What if we get Cara Dune? And I know it's crazy, and I know she's not contracted, and I don't want to see her, but I think there's the possibility of Grief Karga, of anybody who's been involved in the show, kind of being on Boba's team. Now, that being said, in all seriousness, I do think it will be a rogues gallery, and it will be fan service, and it may just be background, right? We may see Afra in the background, right? Or people who are connected to BK in that series. That would be awesome. And I don't think there's going to be I don't think Bosk is going to have a 5-minute soliloquy, but I think we're going to see him in the background. I think we're going to see Cad Bane and all these people who, because Boba has now, I think what he's done is he's shown, I'm giving you all a second chance. I'm giving Tuskens a second chance. I'm not, he didn't go after, he had a chance to do something horrible to BK, and instead he gave him a job. So I think that's what we see this week. And then, to both your points, I think the final episode is just it's a Robert Rodriguez battle. And now here's my challenge. I've learned that I don't love the Robert Rodriguez style Star Wars. Although I love the tragedy, I haven't liked his 2 episodes. They've been my 2 least favorites. So I'm a little concerned about that. But
he's a bit esoteric in his direction.
Yes.
I can tell that he knows the story that he's telling, right? Like, I can tell it is so clear to him, but I am just not in his head watching it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows?
So we do not, and you know what? And if you think about it, that's kind of really successful storytelling, right? That we're now at this point. We would all agree it's been a little bit choppy. We know that it's not the story that people brought with them into this series, but we don't know where it's going to go, which is a good thing. I mean, it would suck if we all decided, well, yeah, obviously next week is this, and then the week after is that. So that's good, and I think having the Mando episode the way they did was brilliant, because it really now has us, however the series ends, we're all pumped for Mando now. So
Yeah. I just feel I'm just like, they gave us this Mando episode and everyone's really hyped about it because that's the Boba Fett series that they wanted.
Well, right. I mean, that's
Exactly.
why they created
know?
Mando, right? They told them you can't do a Boba Fett series because we have plans for Boba Fett. And they're like, all right, so we'll make a Boba Fett light, and he's Boba Fett Prime.
Turns out it's pretty good.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to address two things in the chat real quick. I do like what Matt and/or Sean said. High hopes that the Tusken Warrior shows up alive for the finale episode.
I think so. Yeah,
I'm wholly on board for that. It was very clear we didn't see that body.
What if the Tusken Warrior is the leader of the Pikes?
Whoa!
That huge breaking news. If we had a we'd be there.
How do we not have that?
Come on, Pete. What are you doing? Are you even trying?
I'll get on
next week. That's right. Breaking news. The other one, and I will bring this back. Jeff said it. Who's going to play Cad Bane? I have a very personal theory about this. Heather, you're up first. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to play him.
Oh, you're going to play him.
Oh, Heather's going to be Cad Bane. Well, then never mind. My theory is crap. I was going to say, even though we have got him as the Marshal, I think Timothy Oliphant is the perfect person to put on a mask and be Cobb Vanth, because he's tall and skinny. He's got that Southern swagger. He's space justified on like 5 different levels. I think that would be a fun way to involve him again.
Put a little effect on his voice, and you can even use his voice.
Yeah. I mean, the draw, the whole thing. Cool. So
that'd be really fun.
That would be great. That would be amazing. But Heather, you could maybe play them in the Blue Bantha Milk Co. AI version.
That's totally. We're gonna make Blue Bantha Heather happen.
Yes, I'll do a great reveal like my Asajj Ventress. So
yeah, your Asajj was amazing. So,
thank you.
It's funny. Yeah, as I was telling you before, there's only a handful of podcasts and shows that I don't miss. And anytime Blue Bantha Milk could do an AI anything, and I'm there. So
AI phone book. Let's go.
So, well, hey guys, we talked about this for a little over an hour, and thank you so much, Heather, for joining us. Tell people where they can keep up with you and what's going on with you that they should know about.
Yeah, so you can follow me and all my crazy comic book adventures at Twitter, at Heather Antos, just my name, pretty simple. And I post a lot of dog pictures on there too. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, good. Nick, what's happening on Podcast of the Wills this Thursday?
Coming up this Thursday, actually, it is Matt and Sean from Blue Bantha Milk Co. Talk about synergy. We tried it. It's almost like we planned it. We totally didn't, but that's the way it works. Matt and Sean are going to be joining me for Chapter 4 of our Return of the Jedi canon study, digging into some great moments there, talking about what do we see, what are we pulling out of that. So yeah, that's this week. I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining us. This was a blast. Always great to talk. And I'm actually happy that we didn't dig into the episode too much, because I think we took a slightly different tack. We did promise a different take, and everybody else has already talked about all the Easter eggs. We had some fun. That's the thing. You do the show on a Friday. There's been 2 days worth of 622 podcasts talking about Book of Boba Fett. Where do you go from here? So, but thank you so much, Heather. Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime. And when we get the Book of Black Chrysanthemum, you're gonna have to be a regular. And Nick, thank you so much for hanging out, and may the Force be with you.
Every time. Always.